This is The Inner Page, a program designed to bring you the information you once found on the inner pages of your daily newspapers. We will have conversations with the local service providers, business owners, elected officials, community leaders, and our neighbors who will share information about the events and needed services they provide to our communities that make our lives better each day. This is today's edition of The Inner Page. I'm your host, Alan Wagner. Joining me today is my co-host, Susan Blake. And my co-host will now introduce our very special guest on today's edition of The Inner Page.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a blessed day and hope it continues that way. The sun was shining when I got here, so let's hope it continues to do so. I think we're all getting ready for some serious spring and not this back and forth stuff. Anyway, I digress. What I'd like to do is introduce our guest today. Her name is Shannon Koch. She wears multiple hats. And as we've been talking before airtime, she has some very interesting things that she's going to be sharing with us. And as I tell you all the time out there, get your pad and paper, pencil, whatever you want to use, and be ready to take down some information. She'll be giving you some contact information, some very valuable information on the things that she's going to bring us today. So Shannon, with that being said, please tell us who you are and what you do, and whatever you want to bring up first.
Okay.
Second, however you want to do it, hon, it is your time.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Shannon Koch. I am first and foremost a mom. I have two kids. My youngest daughter is 20 years old, and she is autistic. And she is part of the reason why I decided to get into real estate. So I'm a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, the preferred realty. I'm in the Murraysville office, but I serve pretty much like within an hour radius of the Monroeville area. But then once I started in real estate, I started seeking specific designations because our experience with buying our home had some challenges. And I think it was not for anything other than just lack of understanding and education. So I'm a big advocate for, well, okay, that has to change. And so I looked into it, and there is a designation called At Home with Diversity that is from through real estate. But then outside of that, even though my daughter was diagnosed in 2009, I'm involved in her school, I'm involved in a lot of groups. I knew that to have strangers, I guess, take me seriously, I wanted to get some specific certification. And so I found this organization, the International Board of Credentialing and Continuing Education Standards, IBCCES. And typically they do designations for educators and lawyers and different different industries. I reached out to them and said, so I'm in real estate and I really feel like this designation would be useful in my career. Would you allow me to obtain it? And they wrote back, that's a great idea. And so I have now had that designation. I think it's going on 5 years. And that's how long I've been in real estate.
That is amazing. Just at the get-go, that is amazing because you're absolutely right. There are businesses and different career choices out there that don't marry different situations, your home situation, or whatever it may be. And the fact that you took that extra step to get accreditation to help people in those circumstances is amazing. And we will definitely cover a lot of that because as I was looking at some of the things you had written down about some of the problems people had getting their homes fixed or whatever the case was that they needed for different disabilities. So whatever you want to go with, we want you to educate our audience because that's why we're here. Okay. And that's why I always tell them to get their pad and pencil ready because it is amazing the people we have had on that we just look at each other and go, whoa. We didn't know that either. I mean, we have been blessed with so many awesome people, and we're going to add you to that list because, Thank you. I've never heard of anybody with these dual career choices and how they can be like I said, married together and help people. It's amazing. So go ahead and tell us. And Mr. Wagner has something to say.
We spoke it before that autism is really a spectrum. It's a broad brush. And I talked about my friend who's on the higher end of the autism, Temple Guardian also. So let's talk about autism and the things that we talked about before the show.
Sure. So I think we just talked about how it's changed over the years. The original diagnosis was actually closer to schizophrenia, and it has just broadened, and it has now, you see the umbrella is pretty much what it shows for like the autism spectrum. And I shared with you an analogy that I like to use is people do frequently ask me, well, why do we hear so much about it? And so this actually goes into housing too, real quick. We literally didn't allow these people with disabilities into the United States. There was a period of time where we did not allow them to come to the United States. When we finally started to, and this was mental and physical disabilities and behavioral, when we did allow them, they were institutionalized, or we didn't allow them to be out in public. That's why we, quote, didn't see them. You did not see them because we didn't want them to be there. And now the institutions have closed, or they're working on closing more of them too. So now they're out in the community more, except for the community hasn't been ready for them.
Exactly.
And so,
isn't that the truth?
Right. So they've always been there. And I liken it to a box of crayons.
Right, there
when
it goes.
Crayola came out with their first box, there was red, orange, yellow, blue, green, black, and brown. The kids coloring their coloring pages, when they're coloring the sky, they knew that was not the sky color. But they went with it. Okay. Now Crayola has over 200 different colors, I think it is. They correctly identified what makes up the sky blue. And no one argues that sky blue wasn't there. We've just correctly identified how to make it up and use it as a crayon. We've now been able to correctly identify, when I was younger, you can go through all of this where, they didn't even have the right to equal education until the 90s. Right. So, sorry. I'm really passionate about this, so I try to. There's so much I could talk about. But so things like that, and people are now being diagnosed older as adults, and you can research adults being diagnosed autistic. They're like, this would have helped me so much in school. They were the bad kids. They were the ones that were acting out in class, and they just weren't getting the help that they needed. And it was a lot of miseducation too, or like I said earlier, like they were just being sent away to the institutions to just kind of be ignored. And people finally realized, oh my gosh, they can learn. They just have to learn in a different way. And
it's interesting. And I spoke about my friend who is a high functioning autism. He is diagnosed with autism diagnosis, but he works for the county in real estate. He's a councilman in a local township. Borough, and you wouldn't know that he's autistic, but he has that diagnosis.
Yep.
And people use that diagnosis for a lot of different things that are incorrect. And that's my issue with it.
You're right. And there's even a lot of famous people now. So like Sir Anthony Hopkins was diagnosed at 70.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And he's one of the ones that said, this would have helped me so much when I was younger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah.
All right. How do you put that together with housing?
Sure. So having a child with different needs, we used to have a lot of in-home therapy and, different services that we had to take her to. So I had to take a step back in my career and did like little part-time jobs and just to help, contribute to the household, but it had to be really flexible. And so as she was getting older and we knew that I wasn't going to go back to the traditional corporate 9 to 5, which I'm okay with. But
that's not fair.
I knew that I wanted to. I have so many different ideas of how I can help this community because I really dive headfirst into, yes, my daughter was diagnosed, but I had to open myself up to the problems that all people with disabilities are having. And there's actually an annual event. It was last Thursday and Friday called the Disability and Mental Health Summit. This was the 11th year I've been attending since 2019. And every year we have different speakers and different people in the community coming to us and sharing their experiences. And when I found out that people in wheelchairs can't even really use a lot of doctor's offices.
You're absolutely right.
I knew that there was going to be a lot of work to be done for people like my daughter. So I started to learn a little bit more, and I thought back to our own experience. At the time that we bought our home, our daughter's safety was number one. She was having behaviors that she would elope from the school, and that girl can run very quickly, and I could run very quickly then too. Can't do it so much anymore because she's learned how to self-soothe and how to self-regulate, but it's a good thing. But being near a busy road, it was just not an option. I've seen her jump out of the back of the school bus because she just had one of those days that she was just not. So that was not going to be an option. And I don't think that there was nothing malicious done. So I just want to put that out there. There was nothing malicious done. And I just think it was due to lack of understanding and education that I find that a lot of people with disabilities do have when they are looking for homes, because they do have specific needs. You know, the homes in Pittsburgh especially, you know, they're built in the 50s. The doors aren't really wide enough for wheelchairs. That matters for somebody's quality of life. And my goal is to help those people. I don't care if it takes 2 years. If they need me to go preview a home for them and maybe, you know, do like a video call so they can see without getting their wheelchair into the car and getting there, you know, I mean, it's a bigger process. And
absolutely,
like when we were looking at homes, we couldn't take our kids with us because we just knew that it was going to be more challenging to be bringing her along. So like we had to organize daycare or childcare. And, you know, when you have a child that has different needs, that's a very small pool of people that understand them. So it limited our availability to look. And just things like that. You know, I mean, there really are little things. I once had someone that has such severe vertigo that we needed to look at how close, like, fire stations, police stations, churches are, and how often their alarms go off and what the decibel levels could be. Because if they go off too frequently, it could negatively impact their quality of life.
Sure.
And that's the thing that matters the most is, you know, we probably complain. I'm guilty of it. You know, I'm like, oh man, I wish my kitchen was updated. You know, some people just wish that they could go to the bathroom. And that's not fair. That's not the way anyone should live. And it shouldn't be so difficult to get that. And then I have an example of, are you okay with if I share this example of a friend who?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So I have a friend whose son is 24 years old, born with spina bifida, has always used some kind of assistance when he's been, when he was walking. Yes. But he did lose the ability to walk completely in 2011. So he was 11 years old.
Oh my.
Up until this February, 2 months ago, February 2024, he had to crawl through their house.
Oh.
To be able to move around because the wheelchair was on carpeting, and then they had to apply for grants, and the insurance wouldn't help pay for renovations. And when you become an adult, you can get accepted onto certain waiver programs, but you have to be 23 before you can be on that, and you have to be on that waiver before you can qualify for this program that'll help you get the grant money. You're writing to all these different organizations asking them, please help me, because for the bare minimum, lowest bid, so lowest is not always necessarily quality either. And that's unfortunately the experience that my friend had, was she had to go with the lowest bid because it was $28,000 just to do things like being able to have a roll-in shower, being able to have hard wood or hard floors so that he could use his wheelchair, have a raised toilet, because otherwise he can use the restroom by himself, but he needs assistance. If we do those things, if we allow them to be able to just use their wheelchair to get into the shower and make that easier for them, then they have the same right to privacy and dignity that we do. And they're able to do it. But it's so expensive. And we have these, quote, supports coordinators that are supposed to be, their job is to be basically researching resources and different things for us. We wind up doing all the work. You know, there's such high turnover in that industry, which actually was talked a lot about at the Disability and Mental Health Summit, because they're also low pay. So they don't retain the people whose hearts are into it, because they can't afford to live on, I think it was someone shared with me that their coordinator just got a raise to $13 an hour. When Sheets is paying $17,
right?
Why would they stay there?
Oh my goodness.
Right. And I mean, their heart's in the right place, but they have to pay their bills too.
Wow.
So there's a lot of high turnover.
Everything's upside down out there.
So we wind up
really
getting
is.
somebody new once a year that we have to start all over again, that's learning. And it's like, okay, but my child needs this now. You know, my adult child needs this now. And my friend still needs a stair lift, but she lives in a split level. So it has to be a specific specialized one that's about $50,000. And then if he does qualify for grants, if he uses it all up, he can't qualify again for another 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of things like that. Right.
That's
so
awful.
So, and the thing that really upsets me the most is that I think a lot of contractors also don't understand. So the contractor she got the bid from subcontracted out. They tried to use damaged products. They used old products, old supplies. She has holes in her wall right now, and they're just like, well, you can fix that.
You know what's interesting?
They want her to fix
They want her to fix it. Yeah.
You know what's interesting is my good friend Joe. He always, when I talk about what's going to be built or constructed, the first thing he says, is it ADA compliant?
Right.
And then it starts. Do you do this? Do you do that? Does it have this? Does it? Because he knows.
Right.
And that's interesting.
And ADA is like bare minimum. It's
correct,
very,
yes.
you know, it's as simple as people that stand in the curb cuts on the corner. If you're standing there, you are preventing someone who needs that to cross the street.
Right.
You know,
who would
and there's
even think of
and there's
that?
people
Yeah.
that won't move if they see somebody that needs that. They won't move, and that's just ADA is great. I mean, it absolutely is, but it's the bare minimum, you know, and it doesn't take into account. So specifically, more like with autism and things like that, it can be sensory.
Oh, yes.
So you know, right now I hear this fan on this whatever it is that's next to me. That could be debilitating to somebody. And they make the products that are quiet and things like that. But it's just about being able to get them access to it and understanding that that's a real need for them to, I mean, we all have it. Your partner snores while you're sleeping with them. That is annoying. Sorry, JD. And I still love you. You know, and you know, when it's a bad night of sleep, whenever they had a bad night of snoring, that's the way that it is though, 24/7 for some people that have to learn how to adapt like that. Meanwhile, we could just flip the switch and make it easier for them to gain access to the quiet fan. You know, find a contractor that's willing to help them at a fair price too. And I understand labor. I mean, I 100% support contractors and that their time is absolutely a value. It takes a little bit more with some of these projects though.
You know, my experience with the Kinderkinetic program at the University of Pittsburgh, one of the things we had to train our instructors with, simply dressing some of the students.
Yes.
Because the benches are made to be flat and they're hired on there. And we told them stand behind them because they don't have the balance and if they fall off. But we had all our instructors, when they had certain students, they'd had to stand behind them and make sure when they put their socks on, they'd bend forward and lean back.
Yep.
When they leaned back, they would fall off the bench.
Right.
And that's, unfortunately, that's through experience.
And it's interesting that you mentioned socks because clothing is a huge one too.
Right.
My daughter used to hate the seam in the socks. And when I put them on her, I had to say, okay, I'm going to pinch it under and we're going to put on your sock. And if I didn't say I'm pinching under as we were putting it on, we had to do it all over again.
Wow.
And then but Target, I think it was, came out with a whole line of seamless, like and more sensory friendly products. Tagless shirts are simple. You know, thank goodness that they're almost all, because we all hate our tags. We all don't want that sticking out, you know. But if you have a sensory
bigger problem with them,
right?
Yeah, some of them they
now they're
take
removed.
their clothes off. No sooner do you get them dressed, then all of a sudden they're without clothes because they can't stand, I guess, the feel and like what you're saying. And so many people don't understand at all.
And she didn't wear jeans until, so the school that she goes to is an approved private school. We tried public school. It wasn't the right decision. We transferred her one private school. They mainstreamed her after first grade because she was on task academically, but didn't tell us that we needed to get an aide. this is my first time going through this. I don't know what you're supposed to do. And the professional is telling me, your daughter can go back to second grade public school. So we did it. And in a month, she was the only child in full-time in the special education program. I love the woman who was her teacher, though, because she fought so hard for my daughter, and she told me everything. And she's like, yeah, they don't tell you this stuff. And so she helped me through the whole process. Now my daughter's been at her school since second grade. She's finishing up. Next year will be her last year. She's been there for 12 years now. Yeah, 2000.
Wow.
Actually, next week. It'll be 12 years next week. Aww. And I've actually been the parent rep on the board for the past, I'm going into my 10th term. Because on the flip side, they don't know what's really going on at home. They don't know the difficulties that we're having out in the community. And so it's been great to be able to bring that experience to help them kind of learn how to shape the program, because they service different. The crazy part is, if you move from counties, it drastically changes your services.
Yes.
Wow.
We did that one time, and within a year, we moved back to where we live now, and things moved.
Wow.
And it's just, but there are over 6,000 people on the emergency wait list to get qualified for those waivers that I was talking about earlier. 6,000. Sorry.
What's interesting
We're all
is
over the place.
you're really sharing a lot of information. And again, at the kinderkinetics program at Pitt, it was interesting because I had the aquatic section.
Mm-hmm.
And the dean came down, the school dean, she said, why are you in a bathing suit? You're an administrator. You don't have to go in the water. Oh, I said, oh, yes, I will have to go in the water once we put the kids in the water, because one of the things they don't want to, they love getting in,
Mm-hmm.
but they hate getting out, because that's a very good environment for them. Mm-hmm. And we also did
I never want to get out of the pool.
And the other thing was we dealt with sound levels in our classrooms too, because again, overstimulation.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people don't understand it. And the other purpose was we were trying to teach our student teachers, these are the things it'll occur in your educational career.
Mm-hmm. And I think the big thing too is it's not a one size fits all, but you have to try to figure out a nice middle ground, but you have to be adaptable to individualized, because what works for one kid is not going to work for another. The staff in her school, there was 3 to a room and there was only 9 kids. And, they had to take time, and it cracked me up though as she got older, because she's like, well, so-and-so does this and it's annoying. And I said, well, you probably do something that annoys them too. And she looked at me.
And she had to think it through, and I bet you it made sense to her.
And we were joking around, so I wasn't being mean to my daughter.
Yes.
And she's just like, huh. Like it clicked with her.
Yeah.
And I said, you guys are all there for the same reason. You go to the special school because you each need to learn the way that you need to learn. And she's done amazing. And the school, okay, I'll just say it, it's Pace School in Churchill. I love them. So they're focusing a lot on vocational and getting the kids ready for being able to do careers. Their whole thing is kids can. We believe kids can. And she's part of the LEAF program, which is Life Education for Adult Futures. When she was even in the younger grades, they had them learning how to cook, how to do their laundry, all these things that neurotypical kids aren't even really learning before they go to college. They were teaching them. And they're preparing them to find ways that they can also be employed, and helping us identify, like we just went on a field trip to a couple different programs that she'll be able to enter after she leaves her time there, and learning about that. But the crazy thing is, transition age starts at 14. It's from 14 to 21, and it takes that long.
Wow.
She's going to be 21 in September, and we are still there's still so much work that has to be done.
This is just amazing to me, because we, like you said earlier, they were put out of sight, out of mind, and then when things changed, the communities didn't keep up with this. There needs to be in every community one of you, at least one of you, if not 2, 3, or 4, that is not just an advocate, but does, maybe like this real estate or as a somebody that the real estate agents can talk to, and some of the things that we still want to hear, about what guidance would you offer people that are looking for specific homes. I mean, we could do this again for we've done this before, like, oh my God, we need to go another hour. People don't know what they don't know.
Right. And there's a lot of parent support groups, but it's also difficult to get to them because your child has such intense needs.
They can't even get out the door.
Get to each other. And but in addition to, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes having the outside services that are supposed to help us coordinate, we really learn more from other parents.
Yeah.
And so
that makes
I've
sense.
been able to, I get referred out all the time. People are like, my child just diagnosed, would you talk to them? And I've built some really great friendships. And I've had some of my peers, in my industry and even other industries have asked, what's the best way that I can?
Why don't you start your own company?
Yeah, that's one of my things I want to do.
Yeah. I'm serious because I mean, you know what you're talking about. It's personal experience. You can marry all these different experiences and knowledge, because I mean, we don't know anybody that's like her, do we?
No, the interesting thing is you're making me think about education.
Because he's an educator.
Yeah, that's your background, yeah.
And what happened was they started taking away the special needs classrooms and putting the kids back into the classroom, the special needs kids back, but they never trained the teachers.
Right. You're right.
What to do.
Yep. And I mean, that's great. Inclusion is absolutely so. If my daughter going back to public school was the right fit for her, I wasn't going to get in her way. That was absolutely always the goal. It really wasn't and still isn't the best choice for her given her needs. There's plenty of kids that are able to, adapt and learn the skills that they need in order to be successful in a public classroom. And that's fantastic. There's actually a post going around Facebook right now of a young man who's wearing a Duquesne shirt. And he talks about, I was basically told I was stupid in elementary school. I was told that I would never do anything in middle school, and I mean, basically, and he's like, I just graduated from Duquesne and, and he's like, don't give up because, and that's the unfortunate part too, is there are some educators out there that if a child has an IEP, they just pass them off and they're like, well, you're not going to learn it anyway. And it's still happening. It is 100% still happening. And that's very horrible. But then you have the other teachers who are amazing and they take to that kid and they make sure that kid is learning the way that they need to, because nobody learns the same.
No.
The way that you two is probably different than the way that I do. It's everybody does. They just need extra help. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
If the football players need extra conditioning and extra training, we have no problem funding that and taking care of that.
It dawns on me there should have been a parent advisory group for every special needs kid that was put inclusion, so I could talk to the teachers and say, here's what my child's needs are. That didn't happen when I was there. I was a guidance counselor. I was director of guidance services, and we didn't do that. We had special needs meetings, IEP meetings, obviously, when when psychologists would meet with the parents, but they wouldn't meet with the teachers.
Right.
That's a fallacy. All right, we're running out of it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, good. I want to know about what you do with a Realtor and looking at housing. I would think every Realtor company should have somebody like you to handle people that need class, and then downsizing for adults, though.
So my company actually has a DEI group that we started a few years ago. DEI, the
acronym means?
The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, sorry. And I have definitely shared a lot of our experiences with disability and I think that's one of the things too about the group is everybody has different experience, whatever their background is, and they've been able to share with us, and we've been able to kind of look at things through a different lens sometimes. And I think people, because disability has really been such a quote known thing for so long, and there's ADA, so it's not a problem, but it is.
It is.
Because
of the diversity.
How do you mean?
Diversity and specialities of the children.
Yes. Sorry.
They're all not the same. Even if they're diagnosed with the same diagnosis, they're not the same.
Right. And I mean, no two people are alike, period, end of sentence.
Yes.
Even, identical twins. But
true.
It's true. That's kind of the approach that you really have to take to it is, okay, this person's going to have a little bit of extra needs, but it's not like they're saying, well, that fridge is from 2015, it's too old. They're saying, I want to be able to move in my house. And just having, I guess, patience. If you are somebody that has a specific need, don't feel ashamed of saying you need to be looking for this, and interview a variety of different people, to make sure that you have the right fit. Because you need someone that's going to advocate for you. You need someone that's going to understand what your need is. And this is for anything, absolutely anything. I might not be the right fit for everybody, and that's fine. They need to go find who is the right fit for them, to meet their goals. And that's really the thing. And I think that a lot of times, especially when it comes to things like autism and anything that's neurodiverse, sometimes there's a little bit of, so we're really focusing on teaching her self-advocacy and making sure that she's confident and asking for the things that she needs. And she can get really quiet about it sometimes because, well, I'm embarrassed. Well, I'm nervous, things like that.
Yeah.
I understand that. And
most people may feel that way.
Right.
And God bless her that, she can go through these different maybe emotions or thoughts or whatever. But the fact that she's where she's at is amazing. It's just amazing. You've done a phenomenal job in just the little bit we've gotten to know you. Because of what you said earlier with a lot of the contractors or maybe other real estate people that are not familiar with all of this, how would you direct someone, brass tacks, somebody's looking for a home and they have a child XYZ, whatever, autism, and maybe some of the issues that your daughter had when she was young, because they don't know any better. They don't know not to be angry or not to be scared about something or not want to put their clothes on. That is all, it's part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that, and it's so sad. So how would you go about telling people that are out there with their pads and pencils to take some of this information down? Then we want you to give them your contact information, because I think you would be able to help so many people that just don't know what to do and where to go.
Yeah. So my name's Shannon Koch. That's Koch. My email address is skOCH@tprsold.com, and my website is just shannonkoch.com. My cell phone's my office phone is 724-327-5600, and my cell phone is 412-378-2230. I would love, I have a lot of contractor friends. So obviously whenever I reach out to them, they're a great resource.
That's great.
But they also can't be everywhere. So one of the things I really would like is to find more contractors that are willing to be a part of the community that I'm more easily able to. So for example, my friend, she's in dairy. One of my favorite contractors, I think that he would do it for me, but he can't be doing that all the time because of where he is, but I need somebody out there, or someone that is willing to go out there and really listen to her, because and she's a single mom. So she is, I love her so much because she is so fierce and she is just so willing to share too. And I think that's one of the big things too, is I share to educate. It's my daughter's experience. I think this is part of why I haven't really done some of the things that I've wanted to do, is because I can't speak for everybody. And I really want my daughter to be the one speaking for herself. So I think that might be one of the number one things you do. If somebody is telling you, oh, okay, so this is an example. My daughter says that she is autistic. Some people say they have autism. They're both right. Whatever they tell you is right. You do that. That's what you say. You don't fight with them. And when somebody says, this is my experience, you don't discount it, and there's hashtags all over the place, like Actually Autistic. There's organizations that have autistic people on their board of directors that are part of these conversations. I want to see more of that. I don't want to be the one talking about this. I really don't. I want to support them in any way that I can, but I want them to be the ones that are able to
Be their own best advocates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what a lot of people do not understand, and because of what I was talking to you about before the show, someone that I know, young autistic boy, most people, they just, like you said, they think they're just disruptive, or they're not being disciplined correctly, and all these different things, instead of realizing, wait a minute, maybe this goes beyond the quote unquote norm of what people perceive.
Right.
I remember kids in school. I went to a Catholic school, and I remember kids in school, I mean, absolutely out of control. And did that mean they had autism, or does that mean they were not disciplined correctly?
We don't know.
Nobody bothered to find out. There were
Right.
children that needed extra help and needed extra attention to find out
Yes.
what the problem was, and that was never addressed.
And it's still happening now.
And it's still happening now, and the rate of autism has climbed, or the
correct diagnosis of
the
people
correct
that should have.
diagnosis. Exactly.
And there's still a lot of parents, though, that are hesitant to, because of the stereotypes that come with
They're
it.
in
And it's
denial, a lot
heartbreaking
of it.
because
Yeah.
no one should be judged for that. You know, if you're a diabetic, no one says,
There you go. You
you know,
shouldn't be.
right,
Don't
right.
talk about it.
right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's, oh, what can I make you for dinner that
Yes.
it fits your diet?
Yes.
Same thing.
Yes.
It really is simple. It really, really is.
It is, but we've made mental conditions, illnesses,
That's my blood
whatever.
sugar right now.
Oh,
I just showed her my blood
he
sugar.
did his blood sugar.
Yeah, I'm diabetic. I wanted to know how you become a certified autism specialist. That's interesting.
So that was through that organization, the International Board of Credentialing and Continuing Education Standards. They do a lot of other industries, but I reached out to them specifically about real estate because it wasn't listed on their
right.
thing. And so I've been able to maintain it, and you just have to get recertified every couple years.
Good for
And
you.
um,
Good for you.
just,
Right.
yeah.
But that obviously.
But different industries can do it too. It's not just specific to real estate. That's the one designation I have that's not specific to just real estate. Yeah.
Sure, I assumed that. And you're in a field that's really interesting. Again, I think there's a lot of misinformation about autism. Oh, he's autistic. Well, what does that mean?
Right.
That's a broad brush.
Yeah.
So it is.
Yeah,
you know,
you're
I
right.
had
It really
the,
is.
I had the
Right.
advantage as an educator. I was a physical educator, so if somebody was really active, I put them. You know, I used that.
Right. Yeah.
Sure. Let them play. And then I had the water, so that was even a double whammy for them. And I didn't have problems. I didn't see children as good or bad. I saw them as okay, active or inactive.
Right. Right.
That was a good way of looking at it.
Right.
Shannon, what are some local or national programs available to assist individuals with different disabilities, specifically, you know, like the autism and everything, while people are waiting with their pads and pencils to write the stuff down? Because you know darn well there's people out there that are going, oh my God, who do I call? What do I do? Where do I go on the internet, or whatever the case may be? We have a few minutes left. Can you give us some insight on that?
Sure. So are you asking like for services?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a fun question
Or to
because
find
every
housing.
yeah. So for services in general, every single state and county are different. The verbiage is not the same. I'm very thankful I have friends across the country. I was able to help a friend in LA because I shot out there to Facebook and said, hey, I have a friend in LA that his child's having this need. Who can help me?
See?
And
there you go.
I was able to connect her with somebody. But I don't have somebody in all the states or all the counties even. Like even here in the Pittsburgh area, the difference between counties is really difficult. And I would say, honestly, it stinks, but it's just like look for something like a supports coordinator or service coordinator. But I know that it's called something different in different states, and I can't think off the top of my head right now what they are. But like behavioral health management companies or something like that, if they're looking for like local services, in terms of housing, one of the challenges like my friend had was the financial part of it. And oftentimes people that have disabilities aren't able to purchase a home because of their income. And I actually have a local lender that I work with that they just came out with this program a few months ago where they help. Here, I wrote down because this is not my license, so I can only share like a little bit, but I can definitely connect you with my lender if you need it. But they help people that have like elderly family members or adults with disabilities purchase a home like they're purchasing a first home. So one of the big things is if you purchase a secondary home, the qualifications and the rates and everything are different. If you have someone that you want to help buy a home for that's elderly and that has an adult with disabilities, they're able to help them buy it as though it's a first home. And so, I mean, I can get you in contact with them, but they have all the details. So.
Okay, give your contact information again.
Oh, sorry. Shannon Koch, Koch, 724-327-5600 is the office. 412-378-2230 is my cell. ShannonKoch.com.
Definitely in Pennsylvania. You talk fast.
She wants to make sure she got it out. Give us the phone one more time, a little slower.
Sure. My office is 724-327-5600. Cell phone is 412-378-2230.
Thank you for joining us on today's edition of The Inner Page. Join us again next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on 92.3, 94.1, and 102.1 FM. Also on 620 KHB. This is Alan Wagner and Susan Blake, the host of The Inner Page, a public service program. Thank you again for listening today, and take care, stay safe, and have a great day.